Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This NES Game Boy game, based on the Kevin Costner film of the same name, was teased in the July 1991 edition of Nintendo Power magazine, and wasn't released until a long 6 months later in November of 1991 in North America, and over a year after that in December of 1992 in Europe. Nintendo Power at the time boasted how the game was going to be just like the script of the film, scene for scene. Reviews at the time said the game has plenty of action and excitement, but what really stands out is the way the story unfolds clearly and logically. It's almost like you're in the movie. And they weren't wrong. The game does a great job of following the film scene for scene, and even though it doesn't feature any of the character likenesses, it shows the story through dialogue between characters with solid graphics, and you get to see all the places that were in the film. This game is great because it has so much variety in gameplay. One moment you're caught up exploring the world in overhead view with all the deep RPG mechanics where you can gain XP, earn different stats, press pause to look at your menu that allows you to look around, talk to people, pick up items and swap your gear, then bam, the next moment you're thrown into a one-on-one fighting mode where you're having crazy ass sword duels Soul Calibur style, rolling around like a crazy person, then bam, you're walking around Zelda style, exploding people with your sword with no remorse, and you don't even feel bad about it because you're Robin Hood, and stealing from the rich and giving to the poor is what you do. Do you like horses? It's got that too. Cat Rap. This game has a long history, as the original concept for this game was published in 1985 in the August issue of the magazine OMZ Publications as a type-in program under the name Pitman for Sharp's MZ line of computers. The popularity of Pitman caused the game to be picked up and converted to Game Boy, and thus Cat Rap was born. Cat Rap is a cute yet difficult but rewarding puzzle game where you get to play as either a boy or a girl cat, and play through 100 levels where you need to defeat monsters and ghosts by strategically pushing blocks around so you're able to knock them off the screen with your booty. There is a lot of trial and error, but that's okay because in Cat Rap, you're blessed with the amazing power to rewind time instantly with the press of a button, Prince of Persia style, which is honestly really cool, and I think this is the earliest example of a game doing this that I can even recall, and it does it smooth and seamlessly too. My only gripe with this game is the damn music is so annoying, and there's only one song that plays the entire time, so I strongly recommend muting that right away, as well as there's no save system, so be prepared to write down some passwords. Double Dragon Game Boy. Much like Prince of Thieves, this is another game that was also on the NES. Double Dragon for the Game Boy was made in 1990 by Technos Japan, and is a faithful recreation of the NES version, with completely new level designs and all your moves are available from the very beginning of the game. The enemies are the same as the NES version, but some enemies such as Abo and Chin were given new techniques. The main game mode is all single player and ends with a fight against Willy, with Jimmy not appearing in the game at all. There is a 2-player versus mode you could play via link cable, which was super fun, but the only characters that were available at the time are the Lee brothers. Definitely not as good as the NES version, but if you're a fan of Double Dragon, it's a must-have. And you can pick it up right now on the Virtual Console for dirt cheap. Donkey Kong 94. DK94 starts out just like your original arcade Donkey Kong classic, with the first 3 stages being almost exactly the same, but after that it breaks away from the norm with all new game mechanics, items, levels, and Mario has some sweet new moves as well. You play as Mario in an alternate retelling of the original arcade Donkey Kong, where whenever you get close to Pauline, DK will get up again and run off with her. So basically, it's the plot of the first game, but updated with new levels, and graphics, and sound. What more could you ask for? After each level you get to play a bonus minigame that can earn you extra lives, and you get to play a slot machine as well. This game has a different art style than the original that I actually prefer, and the music is great. If you enjoyed the original arcade Donkey Kong, or any Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, then you'll love this game. Super Mario DX. Have you ever wanted the 1985 NES classic Super Mario Bros. Right in your pocket? What if I told you that we'll also throw in the 1986 Disk System sequel, Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, in there as well? Well, look no further than Super Mario DX for the Game Boy Color in 1999, 14 years after the timeless NES classic hit the shelves. This wasn't a direct port either. This version was all jazzed up with new and improved sprites, smooth animations, and music that sounded amazing on the Game Boy. Interesting new minigames, and even a mode where you can print off pictures for the Game Boy camera were also included. As well as improved graphics and sound, some other minor differences are the game's physics are somewhat tighter. You begin the game with 5 lives instead of 3, and many of the glitches from the original game are taken out, such as World -1. And you can save the game anytime, which is a great feature for a handheld game like this. For players who have already beat the original to death, there's also a challenge mode, which allows you to play any level, but this time you have to collect red coins and Yoshi eggs, and try to chase high scores to unlock medals that allow you to unlock more pictures to print off. After you reach 300k points in the original game, you unlock Super Mario Bros. For super players, which is a port of the lost levels. Again, this is not a direct port of the original, as some modifications have been made. One of the best Mario games on the Game Boy Color and a must-have for anyone who likes platformers. You can just pick it up and put down anytime, anywhere. Pokemon Trading Card Game. I remember the Pokemon Trading Card Game being so big when I was in elementary school. Kids all over, trading, battling, playing the games all over the playground. I was a lot more into the Game Boy games than I was the card games. Mostly due to the fact that I would rather spend my allowance on the video game rentals every weekend than a new booster pack, and because of that, I got to enjoy this game. Pokemon the Trading Card Game starts out like your regular Pokemon adventure on the Game Boy, with gorgeous graphics flying all over the screen, top tier Nintendo jams in your ear, and a professor telling you what to do. Except this time, you aren't training and battling real Pokemon, you're battling with cards. If you picked up this game as a kid expecting it to be a game that is similar to your average Pokemon adventure thus far, then maybe you were let down by this game like I was at first. But I pushed through my weekend rental and learned the rules of the card game in a setting that I could really understand better than learning about it on the playground. And in this game, all the cards are just provided to you as you win matches. It's truly a blessing for any kid at the time who wanted to get into the card game, but didn't have the attention span or funds to do so, like myself. Through trial and error, you learn the ins and outs of the card game, the different advantages certain types have against each other, and ways to construct different deck types to get the upper hand against your opponents. You go from player to player, gaining new cards and fight different gym leaders as you progress, and trust me, this is no easy task. I remember having a difficult time with it as a kid, and even now I struggle to beat it. My favorite way to play this game is just by firing up an emulator on my phone, because the controls work great and the fact you can save the game anytime is a big help as well. Tetris DX. Another enhancement of an original Nintendo classic makes my list with Tetris DX. While the original game is still amazing, this is a game that has all the mechanics of Tetris left untouched, but with upgrades like color, the ability to save your high score, Ultra Mode, which is a mode that lets you see what the highest score you can rack up in 3 minutes is, and a versus CPU mode that lets you go head to head against a computer. My favorite difference is the fact you can save your high score using the battery in the game, but one downside is that you can't reset the high score unless you change the battery of the game. I got my copy from a used game store, and the guy who owned my copy previously was a Tetris god, and I cannot for the life of me beat any of his scores. But hey, at least I have something great to strive for. Some people may say they don't like the music compared to the original. That's totally valid. I can see why. I really don't mind it. If it's that big of a deal, I would just mute the music. This game is also compatible with the original Game Boy, so if you enjoy those old school colors, then you'll feel right back at home and still be able to save your high scores. Wario Land 2. Wario Land 2 is a platformer for the Game Boy Color, where you play as the fat, crooked mustached arch-rival of Mario, and you get to use special abilities to dash, pound, and throw your enemies to their death, while making your way through various stages while trying to reclaim your stolen treasures. These aren't the only abilities that Wario has though. Throughout your adventures you gain certain powers from your enemies like turning fat, turning into a zombie, reacting to allergic reactions from bee stings that allow you to float, and more. All this leads to a game that is a blast from start to finish, and if you're new to platformers, here's a nice surprise. You can't die or get game over. This game is set up so that when you get damaged, it's only an annoyance to the player, so you have to go back and try again. An easy platformer but still has some tricky spots. And this game is packed to the brim with content. So many unlockable levels, mini games to play, alternate routes with additional chapters and endings, it's crazy. I also really enjoyed how the music for each chapter stuck with a specific tune and theme that added new elements to that tune as you go. That is something unique to this game that stands out in my mind, and I always get excited to hear what melodies and sounds they added to the next level's music. This game is available on the Virtual Console for 3DS, so if you have one, I definitely recommend picking it up. It's very unique. Pokemon Gold and Silver. Not only is this my number 2 Game Boy game, I would say this is my number 1 Pokemon game of all time. The graphics, the music, the simplistic story, and amazing quality of life changes from the original games made this hands down my absolute favorite. The fact that items are now categorized into different bags, the new breeding system that introduced eggs and baby types, being able to go back and refight trainers, and the introduction of steel and dark types so that psychic Pokemon were no longer overpowered, apricots that you could pick up and turn into special Pokeballs, so many big moments like catching the legendaries, the Red Gyarados fight, catching Sudowoodo and kicking Team Rocket out of the radio tower, the National Park events. This game has so much content even to today's standards. I spent countless hours playing it and I didn't even come close to finishing my Pokedex. I'll always remember playing this game, beating the Elite Four, and being absolutely floored when you turn the Game Boy back on and they tell you get to go back to Kanto where you get to fight the original 8 leaders again, but with the Pokemon you just raised. Oh my god. Not only did they introduce 100 new Pokemon in Johto, but now you get to go back to Kanto and catch all the original favorites to form the perfect team to take down Red at Mount Silver, which is the ultimate badass ending to a Pokemon game, fighting your previous self from the game before. If you haven't played this game, or if you've only dipped your toes in the new Pokemon games, then you owe it to yourself to give this game a try. Link's Awakening DX. With the Switch remake coming out, I am beyond excited to talk about this game again, because it's so amazing and popular among Nintendo fans that I don't even have to explain why it's number 1. Link's Awakening was released in December of 1998 and is one of 3 Zelda titles for the Game Boy Color, and features gameplay similar to A Link to the Past, with some platforming sections that resemble Zelda 2 sprinkled in as well. This game has amazing graphics, music, sound, and an intriguing original story with solid gameplay to match, with all the elements that Zelda fans loved from the past installments, as well as vibrant color graphics if you're playing on the Game Boy Color. It is one of the few Zelda titles to not take place in Hyrule, and instead Link shipwrecks on a mysterious island, where he must go through 8 dungeons, using items such as the classic boomerang, hookshot, bow, the ocarina, and the feather that allows you to jump using a dedicated jump button for the first time in Zelda history, even before Breath of the Wild. This game has sold more than 6 million units worldwide for a reason, and if you're a fan of the top-down Zelda games like A Link to the Past, then don't overlook this game. Just because it's on the Game Boy doesn't mean it's any less grand in scope, because some would argue this game is on the same level or even better than A Link to the Past. I for one am excited to finally get a Switch when this game comes out and get shipwrecked on the island again in full HD goodness.